Hey everyone, I'm Nathan Phillips and I'm here to pitch you Holiday Identity. Okay, so this is personal to me because I've always loved Christmas movies like Lampoon's Family Christmas, A Christmas Story, Prep and Landing, etc. Christmas is my favorite holiday and I'm a big champion of comedy. With a low budget, I'd argue you only have to get more creative with what you're making and how you go about it. The main character in this is also bisexual, and I'm also bisexual, and for that reason, the main character has a part of me in him. And so, yeah, Holiday Identity. Okay, so the genre is comedy slapstick. If you cross the plot of Lampoon's Christmas Vacation with coming out to your family in regard to But I'm a Cheerleader and mix the craziness of both those movies, you'll get Holiday Identity. So the theme I'm exploring is struggling with coming out to a family set during the holiday season. Okay, so the logline is Charlie knows his sexual identity, but he's unsure of whether his family and relatives are ready to accept him. His cousin Elsie helps Charlie plot social tests against the family to weigh how they'll take the news. So they psychologically, Charlie and Elsie, try and weigh how, his relatives and his parents and all that will feel about Charlie coming out as bisexual. And then we have, an example of Home Alone here, and Lampoon's is just a sense of two scenes that I'll go into in a bit detail later on. More the one on the right from Lampoon's. Okay, so Act 1. So Charlie sits in his room reading a book. He's never had to discuss his identity before with any of his family. Charlie hears noise downstairs and leaves his room to ask what's going on. He hears rumblings from his parents that his whole family and relatives are unexpectedly coming to the house to celebrate Christmas with all of them. This puts Charlie on edge because he lives a double life, and his grandparents are always up to asking him if he's got a girlfriend and what he's been up to romantically, which he's not eager to answer. They're also from a different era and aren't used to people embodying the values that Charlie does, such as, LGBTQIA plus people. And Charlie doesn't see a better time, though, than when the family's all together to spill his secret, but he has anxiety about it. Okay, so Charlie's cousin Elsie, who's also a really close friend of his, arrives and knows about Charlie's sexuality. He tells her he wants to let the family know, and Elsie understands. Elsie comes up with the idea to perform elaborate social tests on the family to see how they'd react to Charlie letting them know his sexuality so that his anxiety will be eased. These tests range from Elsie telling her parents she is a LGBTQIA friend who she loves and wants to help them talk to people about coming out, but she's not really sure how to do it. And Elsie's parents are thoughtful and tell her the best thing you can do is be there and support them. So far for Charlie and Elsie, it's so good until they have to talk to the boomers, grandparents. Okay, so Charlie and his cousin take a drive to get away from the chaos of the household. And Charlie's 17, so he's legal. Charlie explains how he isn't worried about his parents reacting negatively, but he's worried about how his relatives will react given they have such an innocent idea of him. Because they haven't visited him often, so they don't really know what he's up to all the time, but they're all like, oh, you're a sweet, masculine little boy. On the drive, Charlie explains he's always been able to live a double life without issue because he loves his friends, and his parents aren't super fishy as to his activities because he's a good kid. He gives an analogy to Elsie that it's like telling somebody your favorite ice cream flavor. You're not going to tell somebody your favorite flavor of ice cream unless they ask what it is. And the point he makes is that it doesn't have to be a big deal. However, with all the family in attendance, it feels like it has to be a big announcement because when else is he going to do it and it won't be awkward? Elsie understands this and they drive back to the house. They continue to do tests that increase with awkwardness and are far less transparent about Charlie's sexuality. Okay, so Charlie's aunt asks him about celebrity crushes, and he mentions Bruno Mars, Simu Liu, Harry Styles, Margot Robbie, Ash, Taylor Russell, etc. His aunt tells him she meant people he'd go on a date or sleep with. Charlie mentions that he just meant the woman, which prompts her to say she understands, and they're all very pretty. This makes Charlie anxious and uncomfortable, and he talks to Elsie about it, and he wasn't necessarily not expecting this reaction, but at the same time, yeah. Anyhow, there's mixed reception, so they decided to go after the grandparents decently aggressively. So he shows his grandmother a picture of Harry Styles and says his friend finds Harry very attractive. The grandmother agrees, and this calms Charlie's nerves until he hears his grandfather's talking about how men liking men is weird. This really puts Charlie on edge, and Charlie and Elsie agree they'll figure it out. Anyhow, as rumblings begin to be discussed between the relatives and parents and whatnot about what Charlie and Elsie have been up to, things come to a climax at Christmas Eve dinner, where tensions run high between members of the family over the odd and obnoxious behavior, or so it seems, of Elsie and Charlie. As the rest of the family starts to argue with Charlie's family about their behavior, Charlie can't take it anymore and erupts. The relatives are confused, so he tells the family that he's bisexual, and the relatives are confused, and his parents are a bit shocked, but they tell Charlie that they've known he was bisexual for a while, but they didn't feel like it was their thing to tell him, or anybody else in the family, or friends, or whatnot, for that matter. The aunts are still in a bit of shock, and the grandparents can't believe it. Charlie proceeds to go around the table and point out everyone's typical behavior and how they're treated no differently for it, so neither should he. Because it doesn't have to be a big thing. It's just a part of him, and if they can't accept it, then that's their problem, not his. So he insults all of them in a somewhat friendly way to get his point across, and he also compliments them. And so he kind of does this as if he was doing a stand-up routine where he just goes around family member to family member at the table. Kind of just like the Lampoon's photo I showed is kind of how they'd all be sitting. Anyhow, the family goes to bed and they all wake up Christmas morning to open presents, and that's the end of the movie. Okay, so the big set pieces are Charlie tells his family about his identity, the different experiment scenes, like Elsie telling her parents that she knows somebody who's LGBTQIA and wants to be friends with them, but she's not really sure how to go about talking about it. And then there's the family all coming to the house, the family opening presents with one another, and then just, the other experiments like talking to the aunt and the grandparents would also be big set pieces within it. And then them talking on the drive, too, about how he's lived a double life and whatnot. Okay, so the two main characters we have are Charlie and Elsie. So Charlie hasn't ever felt like he's needed to announce his identity, but when it comes to his family all being in one spot, he sees no better opportunity to tell them. He's worried how his relatives will react, though, given their older age, and he doesn't feel like it's something he has to say. He doesn't feel it's something he necessarily has to be super transparent about, because if it's not a big deal to him, why does it have to be a big deal to anybody else? Then there's Elsie, who's Charlie's closest confidant, and is also Charlie's cousin, and she knows Charlie's identity. She wants to help him tell the family, knows it won't be easy. She's creative and helps come up with the social tests, the psychological social tests that they'll use on the family members. Okay, so the two locations are a family house and a road, and I was thinking this could be set in Colorado, but it could frankly be set anywhere. And so the big wow moment of the movie is when Charlie reveals his identity to the family amidst the mixed results of the social experiments he performed on them with Elsie. And the big twist is that Charlie's bisexual, and his parents knew, which he wasn't expecting, but they never forced, him to tell them. And his whole family is surprised, but after some discussion, everyone comes together to accept Charlie for who he is, and they celebrate Christmas together. And thank you for listening. That's my pitch.